Inclusive Bible. Verses 1 through 8. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But the earth became chaos and emptiness, and darkness came over the face of the deep. Yet the Spirit of God was brooding over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Light be," and light was. God saw that the light was good, and God separated light from darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness night. Evening came, and morning followed, the first day. Then God said, "Now make an expanse between the waters, separate water from water." So it was. God made the expanse and separated the water above the expanse from the water below it. God called the expanse sky. Evening came and morning followed, the second day.
Verses 9 through 19. Then God said, "Waters under the sky be gathered into one place. Dry ground appear." So it was. God called the dry ground earth, and the gathering of the waters sea. And God saw that this was good. Then God said, "Earth, produce vegetation, plants that scatter their own seeds, and every kind of fruit tree that bears fruit with its own seed in it." So it was. The earth brought forth every kind of plant that bears seed, and every kind of fruit tree on earth that bears fruit with its seeds in it. And God saw that this was good. Evening came, and morning followed, the third day. Then God said, "Now let there be lights in the expanse of the sky. Separate day from night. Let them mark the signs and seasons, days and years, and serve as luminaries in the sky, shedding light on the earth." So it was. God made two great lights, the greater one to illumine the day, the lesser to illumine the night. Then God made the stars as well, placing them in the expanse of the sky to shed light on the earth, to govern both day and night, and separate light from darkness. And God saw that this was good. Evening came, and morning followed, the fourth day.
Verses 20 through 28. God then said, "Waters swarm with an abundance of living beings. Birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the sky." And so it was. God created great sea monsters and all sorts of swimming creatures with which the waters are filled, and all kinds of birds. God saw that this was good and blessed them, saying, "Bear fruit, increase your numbers, and fill the waters of the seas. Birds abound on the earth." Evening came and morning followed, the fifth day. Then God said, "Earth, bring forth all kinds of living soul, cattle, things that crawl, and wild animals of all kinds." And so it was. God made all kinds of wild animals and cattle and everything that crawls on the ground. And God saw that this was good. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, to be like us. Let them be stewards of the fish in the sea, the birds of the air, the cattle, the wild animals, and everything that crawls on the ground." Humankind was created as God's reflection. In the divine image, God created them, female and male. God made them. God blessed them and said, "Bear fruit, increase your numbers, and fill the earth. and be responsible for it. Watch over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and all the living things on the earth.
Chapter 1, verse 31 through chapter 2, verse 3. God looked at all of this creation and proclaimed that this was good, very good. Evening came and morning followed, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth and all their array were completed. On the seventh day, God had finished all the work of creation, and so, on that seventh day, God rested. God blessed the seventh day and called it sacred, because on it God rested from all the work of creation. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's early autumn, and I step into an agribusiness cornfield. Rows envelop me, the whole world a forest of corn beginning to turn brown. Leaves and husks rattle overhead. I walk along the furrows between rows, step onto the mounds upon which the stalks grow. A repetition of the same plant fills the space. Nothing chirps or rasps, squawks or buzzes. If it were a rainy day, I'd see brown water running down the slight slope I'm standing on, washing the dirt away before my very eyes. In a monoculture, a world of damage lies beneath the obvious sameness. During that autumn walk, I didn't know how depleted the earth was, each corn stalk sucking nutrients from the soil and giving nothing in return. In this passage from his book, Beautiful Imperfection, disability justice advocate Eli Clare describes the environmental harm caused by agriculture that focuses on just one plant. Often, in smaller scale farms and gardens, so-called companion plants are grown together. These plants support each other. One might attract pollinators or keep away pests. The other might act as a trellis to climb on or provide much needed shade. But in large-scale farms, typically only one crop is grown in a field. Without companion plants, chemical pesticides and fertilizers are needed to restore what would naturally happen. Disease easily ravages an entire field. As Claire describes, agribusiness farms like this appear neat and tidy. The crops grow in straight rows, evenly spaced, uniform. They meet some deep-seated human desire for order. We see such a desire for order echoed in this creation account of Genesis 1 as well. In the very beginning is chaos and emptiness, but the story quickly turns away from such a frightening image. The creation of the world is neatly divided into 6 days, with something distinct happening each day. Furthermore, the phases of creation are generally described in pairs: day and night, earth and sea, plants and trees, sun and moon, female and male. This use of binary pairs is a poetic choice on the author's part, not unlike saying from A to Z. Obviously, there are more letters than A and Z, but the phrase is meant to encompass everything in between. Similarly, we know that the binaries in the author's poetic language do not preclude the existence of other expressions. For example, God creates dry ground and sea, yet we have wetlands and tidal flats and deltas and other geographic locations that blur that line between earth and ocean. Indeed, even the writer's desire to impose order cannot hold back the chaos of creation. The text itself contradicts its own binary. I don't know if you noticed this. God called the light day and the darkness night. Evening came and morning followed. No sooner has God created a supposed binary than the clarity of daytime fades into twilight evening, a liminal space between day and night. Perhaps the most famous binary in this narrative comes at the end. Humankind was created as God's reflection. Female and male, God made them. Throughout the years, many have taken this to mean that there are two, and exactly two, sexes and genders, female and male, and that everyone must fall into one or the other category. But science has shown us that this is not true for many creatures. Many fish, for example, may change sex based on the needs of their environment. A number of mammals display characteristics that we would consider typical of both male and female. The evolutionary biologist Joan Roughgarden identifies what she thinks of as different genders within several species, groups of individuals of the same sex who share differing traits and roles. She points to the white-throated sparrow as an example, identifying 4 genders: white-striped males, which are aggressive and territorial; tan-striped males, which are less aggressive and less able to defend territory; white-striped females, which, like their male counterparts, are aggressive and territorial; and tan-striped females, which ignore territorial invasions altogether. Each gender plays its own role, both within a mating pair and within the larger territorial system, enough to be considered 4 distinct expressions. In creation, clearly, the binaries are challenged. And as a part of creation, human expression also challenges binaries. June is LGBTQ Pride Month. This month, we celebrate the wide range of human sexuality and gender: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, non-binary, and many, many more. Each created by God in God's image and called good. But what does it mean to be created in God's image? Now, theologians have debated this question for millennia. For a clue, many turn to the previous verse. God says, "Let us make humankind in our image." God is talking to God's self in the plural. Today, on Trinity Sunday, we remember that God is 3 in 1, always in relationship with God's self. So too, God did not create just one human, but many, female and male and everything in between. Molly Haslam explored this question: what is the image of God in humans? through the lens of her work with people with profound intellectual disabilities. Given the reality of intellectual disability, she could not say, as some theologians have, that the image of God is found in our critical thinking capacity, or our agency to act towards a goal, or our ability to understand and obey God's will. People with intellectual disabilities may not be able to do these things, but they are human and so bear God's image. Rather, Haslam suggests that we look at what happens in the, quote, in-between space of relationship with one another. She says, we find our humanity in relationships of mutual responsiveness, where all partners respond to one another, even if they are not necessarily equally aware of what they are doing. Human being is a dynamic, not a static concept. There are many ways to name the Trinity. One, the most traditional, is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But another is lover, beloved, and love itself. And it is that set of names that I find particularly helpful in thinking about humans as the image of God. If God is lover, beloved, and love itself, then God can occupy all parts of a relationship, not only an active or a passive role, but also the interplay of the in-between, the love itself. Whenever I am actively and lovingly engaged in a relationship, whatever that may look like, I am imaging God. I am not only talking about romantic relationship here, although that is certainly one way to experience the divine. Any type of relationship mirrors the interplay of God with God's self. In fact, I would argue that the more we are in all types of relationships, the more we will understand this. Here we come back to Eli Clare's image of the cornfield. It takes a massive amount of human intervention to grow corn all by itself. Alongside its companion plants, squash and beans, corn thrives much more easily. These three plants are sometimes referred to as the Three Sisters, a name that originated with the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois people. They are in a mutual relationship with one another, each providing something the others need. They are interdependent. They support each other in a continual dance of giving and receiving. Nitrogen moving between root systems as bean tendrils reach out toward corn stalks, as squash leaves shelter the others. If one plant is out of the system, the whole thing fails. Without the corn to climb up, the bean plants would have to compete with the squash for space on the ground. Without the beans to fix nitrogen, the other two would not have enough nutrients. Without the squash, weeds move in and the soil dries out. At this point, you might be wondering, yes, but what do plants have to do with people? What happens in the soil of the earth prefigures what happens for humans in a way that is easy to miss in English, but a little more obvious in the original Hebrew. Most of us are used to thinking of Adam as the name for the first man, as in Adam and Eve. But in fact, Adam is the Hebrew noun, which is translated humans. The word is related to Adamah, which refers to the ground. The most literal translation of Adamah is likely red clay earth, or brown red clay earth. So Adam could be translated the red earth ones. The very words used place us within a greater ecological context. We are of the earth. We are the red earth ones. As such, humanity reflects the diversity and the interdependence of all nature. Molly Haslam's suggestion about the image of God leads to an interesting place. She locates the image of God in responsiveness to an other, intellectually and non-intellectually. The other to whom one responds could be a human, physically present or not, or something in nature, or a memory, etc. She concludes, quote, "In each case, to image God is to respond to the world around us. As such, the image of God is a communal concept that cannot be linked to a particular essential capacity possessed by an individual." End quote. The image of God as a communal concept. We need each other in order to most fully recognize our own humanity. There can be no in-between of relationship if there is only one person. We need the diversity of others who are different from ourselves in large and small ways. In the orderly story of creation from Genesis 1, God concludes each day by recognizing the goodness of what has been done. Until the end, when God looks at the whole thing together and declares it very good. No one piece alone is very good. As we celebrate Pride Month together and imagine a just world for all, let us remember this. We need each other, all of us. We were created for the messy in-betweenness of relationship. And this, my friends, is very good. Amen.